Hello and welcome to Hot and Heavy, the Elaine podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Desai. Today I'll be talking about Season 3, Episode 7, The Cafe. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying fall, autumn, whatever you call it. I am thoroughly enjoying it. It is my favorite season. Colorado has a beautiful fall, and I've just been enjoying every element of it. Right now, I've got, brilliant fall colors. I'm not sure we're at peak, to speak in meteorologist terms, if we're at peak colors right now, but all I know is I look out my window and I see bright yellow and the oranges, and then oh my gosh, and then there's like a scattering of these trees with these deep maroon leaves, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's just perfect, and I can't get enough of it. I think I've said enough about trees. The most I've talked about trees on this podcast. Other than obsessing about fall, I wanted to mention, and I should have mentioned this a couple weeks ago, considering this happened a couple of weeks ago. Seinfeld is on Netflix now, and there's quite a bit of controversy. Well, maybe I'm just seeing it because the algorithm on my phone has been shoving these stories into my face, but fans are not happy with how Seinfeld looks on Netflix. And I have to say, I agree. I don't notice things. Look, I'm a nerd, but I'm not like aspect ratio level nerd. Okay. I mean, and no offense to you guys who noticed it and are super bothered by it, but, apparently the aspect ratio is completely off, which is cutting off, portions of the camera angles and stuff. I know a bunch of you are just laughing at me right now because I explained that so poorly, but bottom line, the way that they're showing Seinfeld on Netflix is not great. I personally noticed how grainy it looks. I haven't noticed the whole aspect ratio thing as much as I've noticed wow. I mean, I realized it wasn't shot in HD. I mean, this was all in the 90s, but the picture quality is really, really poor. And almost all I can say is just kind of grainy. I just feel like their skin always looks like it's got a little bit of shimmer to it, and not in a good way. So it is a bit disappointing. I wish that they would have, I don't know, maybe considered all of those things before launching it onto Netflix. I mean, it's a pretty big deal. It's like the biggest show of all time, or biggest sitcom of all time. Probably want to make sure that it looks the best that it can. Netflix, come on. I know you got the budget for it. Other than that, speaking of looking great, that wasn't the best segue, but it's the segue I went with. I am obsessed with The Morning Show on Apple Plus. I know, another streaming service, you guys. I'm so sick of it, but I begrudgingly subscribe to it because I'd heard so many great things about The Morning Show and Ted Lasso, which I know I have to watch too. I haven't watched that yet, but at any rate, I am so obsessed with The Morning Show. I love it. I love it. I love everything about it. And it's been really entertaining. There's just something about getting into a new show sometimes, and maybe this makes me sound pathetic, but hey, I'm doing a whole podcast about a character I love on a show. So it's no surprise that I love television and storytelling and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I just get giddy when I'm really into a show. And right now that's The Morning Show. They do a release every week, an episode every week, which I mean, how spoiled are we with binging, right? I mean, I was appalled because I had to catch up on the first season, and then I just started the second season a few days ago, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, there's not hang on, what? I have to wait until Friday? Oh, how spoiled we are, and how quickly that happened. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where I watched shows where, yes, I did have to wait a week in between episodes, but yet look at what I've become. I've become this spoiled brat of binging. All right. On that note, let's get into the episode. The synopsis from my coffee table book about the cafe is as follows. A small failing restaurant brings out Jerry's sympathy, but when the owner takes his advice, things go from bad to worse. Elaine helps George cheat on an IQ test, but their caper backfires thanks to Kramer and his stolen jacket. This episode is written by Tom Leopold. So we start out the episode in a sort of definitely a different kind of unique set that they don't use very often, or they haven't up until this point, but George and Jerry are standing outside. Jerry is just obsessing over this restaurant across the street called the Dream Cafe, just saying, oh my gosh, no one's going in, this poor guy. George is in his own world talking about how he's too nice and women don't want nice. Why is nice bad? Jerry notices he smells something and he looks at George. Yeah, I'm wearing some cologne, he says. Why? You don't wear cologne. Well, Monica wants me to wear it. Well, then tell her no. I'm too nice. Then George says that Monica wants him to take an IQ test, and there's a great, I love Jerry's retort, because you're dumb enough to wear the cologne. Well, no, it's because she's doing a master's in education. She needs to do it for her research. And she's going to find out I'm a moron. See, people think I'm smart. I'm not smart. Jerry is so distracted by the restaurant. George can barely talk to him. Then he asks, well, what did you get on your SATs? What did I get, or what did I say I get? George says he got 1409. That's a good score. But he's taking that real score to his grave. Even though Jerry is his best friend, he tells him everything. Nope, can't tell him his real SAT score. All right, the next scene, we're in Jerry's apartment. Jerry is still obsessing. He's looking out his window with his binoculars. And Elaine's at the table reading the paper saying, why do you keep watching? And he's just like, when the spider's in the toilet, you know he's not going to make it, but you root for him. And then you flush, says Elaine. Well, it's a spider. Jerry puts his shirt over his face. And she says, Jerry, do you have to do that? It's so annoying. Bazooka Joe. I didn't really know what that was, but it's a character from the Bazooka Joe cartoons. I still remember those little cartoons that came in the gum wrapper. That gum was disgusting, by the way, but I know I ate tons of it. Then we hear the buzzer. Elaine doesn't move. Jerry kind of motions to her. She says, it's your house. Oh, like you have to be on the lease to press the button. Casus belli. What? Casus belli. What is that? Elaine says, it's a Latin phrase. I just wanted to say it out loud. Casus belli. And then finally, she just asks, have you gone in there? And Jerry says he's afraid to go in there. If he does, he'll probably start talking to the guy and he'll go partners with him. And George enters and he's leaning over Elaine and she smells his cologne. I'm wearing some cologne, all right? Yeah, fine. And they both say casus belli. And Elaine says, since when do you wear cologne? And George is so irritated. Can we not talk about this? He's so annoyed. Why can't I just be? Why does everything have to be about me? Why do I have to be the focal point of attention? Then George has to ask, what is casus belli? Is it about me? Well, then Jerry has to throw it back in his face. Why does everything have to be about you? Why can't you just be? Why can't you live? And Elaine says, it's nothing, George. It's just a Latin phrase. Jerry asks about the IQ test, and Elaine wants to know what that's all about. And Elaine says, oh, that sounds like fun. Well, of course, George thinks the exact opposite. Oh, you're smart. You'll do well. No, he's not smart, Jerry corrects her. What'd you get on your SATs? She asks. It varies. And then Elaine reveals my IQ is 145. Get out of here. You get out of here. Then we find out George was a legend in college. He one time passed a test out the window to Ledick, whoever that is. He really had some guts back then. And then it dawns on him, wait a second, we could do it again. She lives on the ground floor. Elaine, you could take the test for me. She's like, well, where would I take it? Take it at the Dream Cafe. You won't hear a peep in there. And then, she kind of looks at Jerry. What do you think? I'm always up for a good caper. Yeah, that's what it is. It's a caper. She's excited. She agrees. And they do a very bad high five where Elaine gets hit on the forehead by George. I had to look up caper. I didn't know what they meant by that. And after I had to adjust my search because I just kept getting results on caper, the little berries that you sometimes get, they're like like little pickly berries. I usually get it on my chicken piccata. It is a goofy little joke or prank, a crime, or a ridiculous adventure, which is very accurate describing what George and Elaine are about to do. So the purpose of this scene, we kind of expand on all of this setup in that first scene. We know about Jerry's concern for the Dream Cafe. It's not abating. He is still looking out that window. He's still so concerned about this guy. We know George has to take an IQ test because of his girlfriend, and Elaine's involvement in the story gets introduced where she's going to take the test for George. My take, I like it. I mean, it feels very conversational. I like these types of scenes in Seinfeld where it all just kind of flows, you know? I mean, even the random additions that bring nothing to the story, like the casus belli, like that has nothing to do with anything. There's really no point in including that, but those are the very real things that happen when you're talking to friends, you're hanging out. So I really like that they include those types of things. And I love that we're getting the more prickly Elaine. I like how she won't press the buzzer for Jerry. And I think they're both being sort of equally absurd here. I mean, she could easily press that button. And his expectation that she would just press the button, that was presumptuous of him. So I think they're both kind of being a little bit childish here. I do think, though, if he asked in a more polite way, she would have done it. But the sort of motioning with attitude, like the door, I think that turned her off. And I don't blame Elaine for that. George's defensiveness about wearing the cologne and that immediate turnaround where he asks if casus belli is about him, it's really sharp writing. It's so believable. It's so George. Wearing this cologne, hates that he's being called out on it, and then automatically thinks that casus belli is about him after he says he doesn't want to be the center of attention. Few lines of dialogue that just captures George so well. Elaine was tasked with bringing back the points from those first scenes, and that's really effective to me here. So she brings up that he's smart. That, you know, she tells George, "You're smart." When in that first scene, he says, "People think I'm smart, but I'm not smart." And she also asks about his SATs. The response is so brilliant. It varies. I think it's such a perfect way to respond, especially because they're all friends. And this is kind of those moments that I love too, where it shows the closeness of their friendship. I mean, he doesn't reveal his score. He's established that that's not going to happen. It's that shameful. But he will admit to Jerry and Elaine that he lies about his score because it was so bad. So I like that he's not lying to them about lying about his score, but he's just like, hey, I draw the line at actually saying the number. All right, so I love a good George and Elaine bickering or sniping at each other, but I also like moments like this where she's clearly trying to make him feel better. I like that. I liked that little moment of, you'll do well, you're smart. That's so nice. And it's very believable to me that Elaine has the high IQ. I love that they gave that to her. And the "you get out of here" was very cute. And I love how she laughs after Jerry says it a couple times. So this episode, it wouldn't work without this setup of George passing the test to Elaine. So I let it kind of slide, but the whole thing is a bit far-fetched for me. But I mean, whatever. Like I said, I'll allow it. And, it really does give Elaine such a solid role in this plot. So, and you know me, if Elaine has a really substantive role in the show, I'm totally fine with it. Okay, and then again, that missed high five and Elaine getting hit on the forehead, I always giggle. It's such a fun little physical comedy moment for the both of them. All right, next, we're in the Dream Cafe. Elaine's not in this scene, but really quickly, Jerry finally goes in, tells the owner, people are talking. Well, we find out the owner's name is Babu Bhatt. He's so excited. He seats Jerry, gives him a steaming hot face towel. He recommends the turkey. But the specials, I should say, the specials are tacos, moussaka, and franks and beans. But he recommends the turkey. Oh, and he just thinks Jerry's such a kind man, very kind man, he says. And Jerry's so proud of himself. God, who else would do this? And then he snaps out of it. You're eating a turkey sandwich, you jerk. Get over it. The next scene is George's IQ test. We're in Monica's apartment. Looks like maybe her bedroom. And Monica's like, why do you want to take it in here? And he's like, well, I can't concentrate with you around. And she even says, don't make such a big deal about this. These don't mean anything. And, George says, no. This is very important. IQ tests, They really are legitimate and, I'm going to take this seriously. Monica is played by Dawn Arneman, and she appeared in a handful of shows in the 80s and 90s. I didn't see anything beyond 1997. And I think, she's fine. It's sort of a flat character. There's not a lot to it. She's the straight person to serve all of the humor of George. But that being said, I thought she did a perfectly fine job. Elaine is pacing outside the window, waiting for George. I like that little shot of her where you just sort of see the top half of her face kind of glaring in. So finally, George closes the door. He passes the test to Elaine. She needs to be back at 20 to 3. Now, don't settle for 1:45. You're a genius. Purpose of this scene is just purely to see the action of George passing the test to Elaine, introducing the Monica character, and also that he was in this locked bedroom to take the test. That was part of the caper and very necessary for it. And my take, it's a very transactional scene. Nothing really to comment on here. Next, we are back at the Dream Cafe. Babu is right on top of that water glass. Jerry takes one sip. He fills it back up to the top. Elaine enters. She's in a hurry, she's got to get going on this IQ test. Babu's so excited to tell her the specials and welcome her. Just tea and toast. Tea and toast. He's a little disappointed, but Jerry says, "Come on, no, Babu." And he just gives Elaine this look. "Come on, you got to order something." So she says, "Fine, I'll have the rigatoni." Babu is very excited. Apparently the rigatoni is a great choice. Kramer enters and sits with them. Elaine is, she's already started the test. She's very focused, looking back and forth and filling in the little circles. And Kramer starts in on this story about the jacket he's wearing. Da 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 da. That's a terrible sound effect. I'm sorry. I need something to introduce Jacket Watch. So this is our third installment of Jacket Watch, or event to add to the Jacket Watch counter, whatever you want to call it. I guess it's up to me. I don't know what I'm calling it. It'll probably differ every time I mention Jacket Watch. But for those who might not know what this is, it's a segment dedicated to all the times a jacket has a plot in an episode. So, and this was a response to, sort of really a challenge. I took it as a challenge by the comedian Neil Brennan and his comment on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, saying the few times he watched Seinfeld, they were always worried about a jacket. So I decided, I'm doing this podcast. I am going to note every time a jacket is part of a plot. So here we go. Kramer's talking about how this jacket left by some guy at his mom's apartment 2 years ago. Now all of a sudden he wants the jacket back. He's just like, well, no, I'm not going to give it back. I meet a lot of women in this jacket. He feels like it has a power. While he's telling this story, he's bothering Elaine and spills chips on her test, so she has to move. Kramer's just all up in her space. She can't concentrate. And then he talks about, he shouldn't have to give this jacket back. Isn't there a statute of limitations? And Jerry says, statute. It's not statue. Kramer doesn't think so. He turns, Elaine, you're smart. Is it statute of limitation or statute? Statute. Well, I really think you're wrong. And Elaine's just like, you know what? I got to take this test, okay? Can you just not bother me? Well, what does he do? He has to get up and find out what she's talking about. What test? It's just a test. I'm taking it for George. Why are you taking a test for George? Can I explain to you later? Was it for a job? Later! And just when you think he's done, he says, are you sure it's statute? Yes! And then Babu comes by and gives Kramer the towel. Well, it's too hot. And Kramer can't react just in a subtle way. He literally jumps out of his chair, freaking out about how hot it is. The purpose of this scene, we're just moving the Jerry plot forward with Babu Bhatt and the Dream Cafe, and everything's kind of coming together in the same spot. Elaine is taking the IQ test at the Dream Cafe. Kramer comes by too, and he's discussing his plot, which is the jacket dilemma. And my take, it's a fun scene. I like seeing Elaine, Jerry, and Kramer interacting in a different place. And Jerry insisting that Elaine order something for Babu's sake. It's kind of sweet to me. And I'm sorry, you're going from tea and toast to rigatoni. It just seems like such a leap to me. Like tea and toast is like, okay, I'm not that hungry, but I just kind of want something to hold me over a little bit. And like rigatoni just seems like this heavy, heavy meal. whatever. It's just a leap to me. It always struck me as kind of weird. I love the Elaine and Kramer interaction in this scene. Kramer's cluelessness, it's just done so well by Michael Richards. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she portrays this frustration just perfectly. The reaction to the hot towel, it's a masterpiece of physical comedy by Michael Richards. Just felt I needed to mention that. We cut really quick back to Monica's house. Monica's trying to get into that bedroom. George is reading the New Yorker, just laying on the bed, and he's like, man, this stuff's a killer. Can't help you. He just won't let her in. Obviously, he can't because the cheating would be revealed. All right, so then we're back at the Dream Cafe. Babu he's just having a great day. He's got people in his restaurant, so he's singing very loudly. Elaine asks him to be quiet, and he apologizes and stops and tries to take her plates out of the way, but he spills all the rigatoni and coffee all over the test. She was out of time anyway. She's got to get going. And how is she going to explain this? Babu feels so bad when she leaves, and she's just so frustrated. And Jerry says, it's okay. She was cheating anyway. Then Jerry tells Babu, why don't you serve Pakistani food? I mean, you would be the only Pakistani restaurant in the whole neighborhood. And Babu says, well, there's no Pakistani people, but he said it doesn't matter. I mean, the authentic nature of your restaurant, that'll make people want to come. And Babu says, yes, I'll close down today. I'm going to open up. It'll all be Pakistani. Thank you so much. You're a very special person, Jerry. He's so thankful. There's more voiceover of Jerry just congratulating himself. And then he says, I've never had Pakistani food. How bad could it be? Purpose of this scene were, mostly to move the story forward with Jerry and Babu, but we also get to see that Elaine is struggling, with concentrating on this test, and the test gets ruined by spilled rigatoni and coffee. My take, it's fine. I'm not a fan of the, I guess you could call it ethnic singing by Babu, since it's just being played for laughs. But that is 2021 me talking. I know I found it funny back in 1991. #woke. I'm totally woke, you guys. No, I mean, look, there's a lot of stuff that was done 30 years ago plus. Not even 30 years ago. I mean, rewind the clock like 10 years and there's cringy stuff that has been done. And especially in the portrayal of minorities and certain types of communities. So, but like I said, back in 1991, I know I watched this and I thought it was funny. They die. Like, it's just like, my gosh, what? But yeah, today I'm going, that's not cool. And I'm glad that we've made enough progress where they wouldn't do this again. But back then, I mean, you have to understand, and I'm just speaking for my family, my experience. I'm not saying that every Indian or brown person or Asian person felt this way, but speaking from my experience growing up in my house with my family, we got excited when we saw any sort of brown person on TV. And technically Babu is Pakistani, but it was sort of close enough for us. We had family friends with the last name Bhatt, so that was like really exciting. Babu Bhatt? Oh my gosh. And we actually loved that Indian guy from the movie Short Circuit in the 80s. A lot of you young people out there might not know what that is, but there was this movie called Short Circuit, and there was this caricature of an Indian scientist guy. And we Indian people, at least my family, were like, wow, there's an Indian person on a big screen in America. This is so exciting. Only to find out years later that character was played by a white guy, Fisher Stevens, in brownface. Yeah, I mean, not cool at all. And he totally talked like this. I mean, it's just so incredibly inappropriate. But back then, I will say, we as a family thought it was funny. We laughed at it. I'm not proud of it, but we did. And another example, real quick, I won't dwell on this for too long, but Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, I mean, Jesus, Steven Spielberg. I mean, everything about the representation of India and Indians in that movie, first of all, it's so inaccurate and so offensive. But I still remember back then, my dad, I miss my dad. He's passed away, but he was mostly offended by how ugly the Indian people were in that movie, in his opinion. Why don't they have to show such ugly people? India has such beautiful people. Indian ugly people they're showing. This is what my dad was offended by. Okay. Different times, different opinions. My dad was his own person, very opinionated on certain things. He was not offended by them showing that we eat monkey brains and snake babies. No, it wasn't that. It was, damn it, why are they showing ugly Indian people? That's really, really the crime here. Oh, I miss my dad. Okay, moving on to the next scene. Elaine's at the window apologizing to George. She hands over this test covered in sauce and coffee stains. George is like, how am I going to explain this? Babu Bhat did it. Babu Bhat? I love the way George says, Babu Bhat. Then they hear a knock at the door. Time's up. George says, all right, get out of here. I got to explain this. She says, what happened to the test? Well, George very casually explains that he got hungry and he had a sandwich in his pocket. And then he got some coffee too. Yeah, he climbed out the window. Why would he use the door when the window's right here? You're weird, Monica. Oh, and she says, you're a fascinating man, George. Purpose of this scene, they're progressing the whole IQ test plot. And my take on this scene, Elaine's in it for a short while. Not a lot to say about her, but I did want to mention that George's lie, the way he lies in this scene, it's just a display of how artfully he does it, And it takes me to that moment where he tells Jerry, when Jerry has to take the lie detector test about Melrose Place, when he says, remember, it's not a lie if you believe it. And that's just what you see here. He's so casual when he talks about, oh, yeah, I had a sandwich in my pocket. Yeah, of course. What do you mean? I got the coffee from a grocery store. It's just such a masterful performance. So I really liked seeing, we know George is a liar, but man, to see him in action and the way he does it, it is an art, no doubt about it. All right, the next scene, we're in Jerry's apartment. Jerry's still looking out the window at the Dream Cafe, which is closed down for renovations. And Elaine's like, yes, you're very special. And for whatever reason, Elaine is studying a dictionary. She's got the American Heritage Dictionary just pulled up to her face. Kramer enters. He says, if a guy comes up looking for me, you don't know me. And it's the guy who wants the jacket. And he'll have to kill me. He's not going to get this jacket. Jerry sees George out the window. Georgie, how'd you do on the IQ test? 85! What? 85 IQ, Jerry. Oh, then Elaine just looks up and she's horrified. 85? And Jerry just can't be happier. He loves this whole thing. Well, maybe there were a lot of gender biased questions, maybe a lot on hunting and testicles. Oh, but Jerry, an 85? I can't believe it. It's got to be a mistake. Well, in comes George and he says, oh, hello, Professor. Well, Elaine could not feel worse, and she has to explain herself. Look, there were so many distractions. There was Babu Bhat, Kramer. Jerry's like, oh, yeah, it was a madhouse. It was, Jerry. And George is just mortified. I mean, the way Monica looked at him. Elaine offers, let me take it again. What's there to lose? You could do worse. Well, it's decided. George is going to ask. She's going to take it at Jerry's. It'll be fine. And George doesn't seem convinced, but Elaine is going to do it for him again. The purpose of this scene, we see all the storylines get some attention here. The Dream Cafe is closed for renovation, and yet Jerry is still watching it out the window. I still don't get that. Elaine got an 85 on the IQ test, and, well, the jacket guy is after Kramer. Really not going to let this go. My take, I'm really baffled why Elaine is looking at the dictionary. I just would have loved to know why, a little explanation about this. She's so focused on it. I don't know, just one of those things I wish got explained. George yelling from the street, that is such a fantastic way to reveal how poorly Elaine did on the test. He has to yell this awful score from the street up to Jerry. And it's just so well done. And Jerry's delight is very enjoyable. And this whole thing, that whole setup of him kind of saying it from the street, this allowed for George to walk in and say that brilliant line, oh, hello, Professor. And that's probably my favorite moment of the entire episode, to be honest. I love the way he says that. And speaking of my dad, I know my dad loved that too. He would always really laugh when that moment would happen in this episode. And I love how determined Elaine is to correct this bad performance. I know it's about her kind of ego too, where she's like, okay, no, I cannot let this 85 stand. She knows she's got a high IQ, and taking it over is as much for her as it is for George. There's just this confidence that I love from Elaine. I guarantee you 140, she says. The next, scenes, I guess, are kind of bouncing around from now the renovated Pakistani Dream Cafe to Elaine taking the test and George waiting in Monica's bedroom. Well, Babu isn't as friendly anymore. He's pretty disappointed. He doesn't think this was the right move. He borrowed more money. He worked really hard on this renovation and there's no people. Well, Jerry comes in. He says, I want the works. Babu's like, fine. Elaine is taking the test at Jerry's. She looks like she's really getting through it at a good pace. You can just tell it's a different vibe. She's focused. It's all good. George is pacing back and forth in Monica's room. All right, then we see Elaine finish the test. She feels good. She's stretching. She's like, looks at her watch. Okay, she's got plenty of time. It all has gone so much better this time with the IQ test. Then Kramer comes in. He locks the door. The crazy guy is in the building looking for him. And Elaine's like, I have to leave. I have to get this test back for George. I thought you already took the test. I did. I had to take it again. Well, 4. What's the difference? Oh, man. And then George is looking for Elaine, but it's time's up. He opens the door, shakes Monica's hand. Where's the test? Well, it's the damnedest thing. I went out the window for coffee. Then we cut to Jerry. He's at Babu's and calls him over and says, the shrimp is stringy. Well, that's all it takes for Babu to freak out and tell him, you shut up. Nobody's here. Nobody comes. Where are the people? You show me the people. You are a bad man. Jerry thinks, bad man? Could my mother have been wrong? Then we cut to Elaine tapping lightly on the window. She finally made it to Monica's. Clearly it's too late. And Monica opens the window. Is that the test? Yeah. Elaine doesn't quite know what to say, but hands over the test. Monica tells her, I hope you do a lot better this time. I think I did. Last time I really couldn't concentrate. Purpose of this scene, all these short little scenes, all the plots moving forward. In my take, I like how George gets caught and Elaine meets Monica herself. It's played very well. And of course, Kramer would be the hindrance once again and makes Elaine late to return the test. Then moving on to the last scene of the episode, we're back on the street. Jerry, George, and Kramer standing there. Kramer doesn't have a jacket on. Jerry asks, aren't you cold? Where's your jacket? And he's like, oh, yeah. Oh, no. He lost the jacket to the guy. So now I don't know how he's going to attract women. We'll see. Elaine arrives. She says she just ran into Monica. Guess what her IQ is? 151. Oh, she's so excited. You can just feel all of her vindication just radiating off of her. George is like, that's a good score. And then the end of the scene, I want Mexican. How about Italian? No, Chinese. You know what would have been great? Oh, what, Jerry? That the original Dream Cafe was open with all the different types of food? Okay, I get it. Purpose of this scene, it's our resolution scene. The Dream Cafe is shutting down. Kramer lost the jacket and Elaine did much better on the IQ test. George and Monica are done. Can't blame Monica there. I would have dumped him as well. And my take, I'll just speak to the Elaine part of this scene. I just love that she gets vindicated and how excited she is at the end. You can just tell it's like a weight off of her shoulders. Even though, everything, the caper failed, she still got to get a 151 an IQ test. And speaking of an IQ test, since Elaine took an IQ test in this episode, I decided to take one as well, and I am happy to share my results with you. By no means was this an official test. It was an 8-question free online IQ test. But I wasn't about to take a serious one, and really for the same reasons that George has. I fear that I will get the results and be like, oh my God, I am an idiot. But anyway, this free online IQ test told me that I have a possible IQ in the range of 121 to 137. Now, the average IQ is about 100. So I think that's okay. It's a little better than average. But the thing was, if I wanted a more accurate score, I'd have to pay like a fee. And I wasn't about to pay a fee, you guys. So I have a range, I have an IQ within the range of 121 to 137. Good enough for me. So the other thing mentioned in this episode, the SATs, I never took the SATs because I knew I wasn't going to go to an out-of-state college, and all the in-state colleges in Michigan didn't require the SATs, or at least the ones that I was applying to. I don't know if this is still the rule now, but anyway, at any rate, I did not take the SATs, but I took the ACTs, and I topped out there at a 24. I got a 22 the first time. You could take it twice, and then I got a 24 for the second time. It's technically above average, but for my household, and well, I should just say it, the smart-ass Indian kids in my community, it wasn't so great. I think probably the average score of like my Indian peers was like a 30. And I was like, I got a 24. I'm pretty sure I pulled a George and probably inflated my score a little bit when I told people. No shame, guys. Okay, let's take a quick break, and I will see you on the other side. Words. You've been saying words since you were 10 months old. As you were growing up, you added more and more words to your vocabulary. But did you know that most adults stop learning new words by the age of 27? That's right. So for 2/3 of your life, you will use the same set of words over and over again. If that horrifies you, then you need to listen to my podcast, Chattin' in Latin. My name is Julia Caesar, and every week I will take you on a journey to ancient Rome and teach you a new Latin phrase. Now that we are all congregating again after a long time in isolation, why not show off a new skill to your friends and family? Sure, your sister may have perfected sourdough bread, and your old college roommate can now shred on the guitar, but you could be the one who invested in the art of conversation. And isn't conversation the cornerstone of a healthy society? You could achieve e pluribus unum, which will bring a smile to your e pluribus punum. Punum is actually a Yiddish word, but Latin plus Yiddish in one sentence? That's a bona fide conversation victory. When listening to Chattin' in Latin, consider me your de facto professor of Latin. But caveat emptor, all of your new Latin knowledge may wow your friends ad nauseum. For that, I may employ a mea culpa, for it is not my wish for you to tire your friends with wonder per diem. But ipso facto, I am responsible summa cum laude. It is truly my pleasure to enrich your life with this ancient language pro bono. So carpe diem, and subscribe to my podcast, Chattin' in Latin. Lend me your ear, and I will arm you with the skills to impress, and vice versa, etc., rigor mortis pro forma. Et tu, Brute? And we're back. The inside look for this episode featured Tom Leopold, the writer, and he talked about how both of the storylines here came from his own life. There was a place near his apartment called the Dream Cafe. It was this tiny, tiny restaurant with this huge menu owned by a Vietnamese man. And then he also once had to take an IQ test for a girlfriend because of her schooling, whatever she was majoring in. So both of those things came from Tom Leopold's real life. Brian George, who plays Babu Bhatt, is also interviewed in the Inside Look, and he just talks about that moment of when Michael Richards literally leaps out of his chair when he takes that hot towel and he falls and he screams, and JLD says he flew, like he literally flew out of that chair. And it took Brian George by surprise. He was not expecting that much of a reaction. So he felt lucky that he was able to sort of keep it together in that moment. Julia Louis-Dreyfus says in the Inside Look that finger wagging that was started by Babu, that became a joke on the set, and they did that for years. And then finally, Jerry talks about how they always had the thought of doing stuff on the show that you might not see on another show. It was that simple. And I think this episode is a really good example of that. These two storylines, the Dream Cafe and then also the IQ test, it really does a good job of taking things that are not usually on a sitcom, but taking them and finding the funny within them. A few things from the notes about nothing. First of all, casus belli, the Latin phrase that Elaine is obsessed with, it translates to "this is the argument for war." And it's used sort of as the descriptor of whatever caused a war to occur. One thing that I thought was a little bit ironic, Felicity Huffman actually auditioned to play the role of Monica, George's girlfriend, which I was like, oh, she was a couple of years ago arrested for that college admission scandal. I believe she had paid someone to either doctor her kids' college entrance exams or paid for good scores. I don't know. At any rate, it was something to do with cheating to get into college. And this episode is about cheating on an IQ test. So I just thought that was a little ironic if she would have gotten that role. There were supposed to be more distractions for Elaine in the Dream Cafe. In an earlier draft, there was supposed to be a homeless customer who just kept shouting repeatedly in the restaurant about alimony or something and then leaves without paying. So that was supposed to be an additional distraction for Elaine. And lastly, the notes about nothing does mention that there is a bit of an inconsistency here. Jerry mentions in that voiceover saying he's never eaten Pakistani food. But in the jacket episode, they go out for Pakistani food with Alton Bennis. So that was a little bit of a miss. My favorite Elaine moment, I'll go into this later. She doesn't get a lot of comedy in this one, but I love when Kramer sort of has barricaded himself in Jerry's apartment and Elaine needs to desperately leave. And he, of course, is bothering her like, why do you have to take the test again? And I love the moment where she says, well, what's the difference? I just have to leave. And my final notes about this episode, I love how much Elaine is in this one, and I appreciate that she's an integral part of the entire IQ test plot. And I guess it's technically the B story, but it really feels like this episode has dual A stories in it. There's almost an equal amount of time dedicated to the Dream Cafe and the whole IQ test storyline. So I like that she is really, a big part of this IQ test plot, and to me, the funnier of the two plots for sure. And I also think this is a great example of a gender-neutral plot for Elaine. I mean, we're getting into the era of, where they just wrote stories and it was assigned to Elaine no matter what it was, without any consideration of it needing to be from this female perspective or anything. And it just fits the character. We have no problem believing that Elaine has a high IQ. It just fits. I love that she got this juicy element of this storyline. She has the high IQ and yeah, she should. I have no problem believing that. Very Elaine to be very smart. And overall, there's not a ton of comedy here for Julia Louis-Dreyfus to play with, unfortunately, but it's a great performance. She does, she absolutely accomplishes what she needs to with her role in the show and the episode. And her interactions with Michael Richards, so fantastic. They're just such a fabulous combo together. I feel like, and I don't know, I haven't taken account, but I feel like Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Michael Richards, Elaine and Kramer, they don't get a ton of plots together, just the two of them. But whenever they do, it is magic. And I always look forward to seeing those interactions between the two of them. And I think that's all I can say about the cafe. Oh, that rhymed. Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.